There can be no better way to start our coverage of the global economy at Davos 2015. I have with me Edmund Phelps, the Nobel Prize winner for economics for the year 2006. Professor Phelps teaches at Columbia and is also the director of the Center on Capitalism and Society. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us right here in Davos.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start by asking you for your outlook on the global economy in 2015.
Right.
We've survived one of the worst financial crises that my generation has seen. It's been several years since then, but growth seems very anemic.
Yeah. It is anemic. The question is, what will it be in the next year or two? And I see some pluses and minuses. The big minus is Europe. I think Europe could implode. It's just been one catastrophe after another. The financial crisis, political crises in Southern Europe, and now the problem with terrorism. So I think there's a possibility that Europe will sink farther down. But I don't want to be too pessimistic, because maybe France will get through this, and maybe people will show a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation, and it might even be the opening of a more prosperous period. We don't know. I think the big plus is the United States. It's come along very well. Employment keeps growing. Remarkably, wages keep falling. But that's good from the standpoint of the rest of the world. American imports should be on the rise.
Professor Phelps, you said Europe could implode. Not many years ago, right here in Davos, we were all debating maybe the coming apart of the Eurozone, so to speak, and a failure of the common currency. Do you think those fears have arisen again? Or when you say implode, do you mean instability of another kind?
And I think this is unduly pessimistic. I'm sure that the euro will survive as a useful institution for most or all of its present members. I think the only question is what's going to happen to Greece. Will it take a very tough position and want to repay almost nothing to its creditors, or will it make a good faith effort to pay everything it reasonably can do to a sufficient extent to satisfy creditors? We don't know yet. So, but I think that the big problem in Europe is not the euro. It's the lack of investment activity that would underpin prosperity, and that lack of investment activity in Europe has to be laid to a tremendous lack of innovation. Europe has been almost without appreciable innovation for decades, and now it's having to pay the piper.
Okay. When you spoke of the lack of innovation, something that you have spoken about in detail in your book, The Mass Flourishing, I want to know if monetary policy action in Europe, the ECB is expected to announce a quantitative easing program this week.
Yeah.
Can it fix Europe's problems?
We all hope it will do some good. But certainly it can't fix the underlying problems of weak business investment, which is very much tied to almost a very, very low level of indigenous innovation in Europe. So there's just no basis for high prosperity there. That high prosperity cannot be created by monetary policy alone. Monetary policy can only make sure that it doesn't get in the way.
We are also confronted by weak growth numbers coming in from China. Just this week, they said that growth in 2014 came in at 7.4%, below their targeted rate of 7.5%. It is expected that China will grow at slower and slower growth rates in the years to come. Between the US and the quality of growth there, Europe and its problems that it's facing, Japan and the battle that the Bank of Japan is attempting to fight, and the slowing down of China, I've just listed a few challenges that face us in 2015. What would you count as
I'm laughing because in a way it's an opportunity for India. All these countries are flat on their back. It's a chance for Europe to not worry so much about competition from Europe and China, and begin to think about what it can do to build its home markets and I think India has real possibilities for innovation. It's already demonstrated great talent at that, but that needs to be broadened and deepened. And I think that India very possibly has a decade of steady improvement in front of it.
But incremental improvement, not transformation.
Incremental, I don't think any miracle will happen, but I could be wrong about that. But I think steady improvement over the next 10 years. Yeah.
I want to come back to the question of India and innovation in just a bit, because we also have one of the most youthful demographics in the world. 1 out of 3 or 4 Indian is, of the age of between 20 to 30.
Yeah.
But before I do that, what would you count as the most important challenge facing the global economy this year? You've spoken extensively about Europe. I've listed all the other challenges, or some of them. Currency volatility is another issue that faces us on the back of what the Swiss National Bank just recently did. What would you count as the most important challenges of 2015?
Well, for me, the greatest challenge is Europe, and I shouldn't have forgotten Russia. Russia, of course, is another scary factor in the equation. But I look to China to be stable and continuing to grow at a very moderate rate until it solves some of its until it gets over some of its structural hurdles. After that, it may pick up again. So I don't think that the global economy is in all that bad shape on the whole. I think the main problems are in Europe and Russia.
Would you say we're finally out of the woods?
Well,
given
no,
the backdrop
we're
of the
deep in the woods right now, and hoping we won't go deeper. But I think if Europe can pull itself together, and I think that's a possibility, we can all reasonably hope for that. Then, and if Russia will see the wisdom of behaving better in the world and in the global marketplace, then that would also help to pick up things.
What can Europe do?
I think Europe's big problem is to learn to love business instead of hating it, instead of counting the hours and days until they can go on vacation again. I think there have to be some deep attitudinal improvements in Europe, especially in France, but not only in France. I think the same could be said for Italy and some other countries. There's no reason to enumerate them all. There has to be a more positive attitude toward business, and then that may lead to opening up the economy to more competition, to newcomers, to people with new ideas. Innovation could come back.
A quantitative easing program isn't going to fix that, Professor Phelps.
No, but it may be necessary.
To buy time?
Yes, right.
Okay. You've spoken of the U.S. being a key engine of growth this year. How would you assess the quality of growth that you're seeing in the U.S.? The unemployment numbers are looking better every month.
Well, growth is growth. I don't see the recent growth as low quality growth. I think there is some improvement of business investment there. I think exports have been nothing to write home about, but of course exporters have had to contend with a strengthening dollar for more than a year now. So exporters have done reasonably well. In many ways, I think it's a textbook. In some ways, it's a textbook recovery, a recovery of investment activity, and the output has gone up. The gross domestic product has gone up, and unemployment has gone down strikingly far. I was very surprised to see the unemployment rate go so quickly down to 5.6 or something like that. I would have thought that would be a few years off on the horizon. So I wouldn't say that it's a low quality growth, and also this was achieved without another round of fiscal profligacy. So it was achieved, if you like, with a bit of fiscal austerity. Not a whole lot, but definitely a touch of fiscal austerity. So I would say that the quality of the U.S. growth has been pretty good.
Okay, Professor Phelps, that means you that, in a sense, approve of the policies that the Federal Reserve adopted to help the U.S. emerge from the global financial crisis, because these are policies that are being, in some sense, emulated by the Bank of Japan and now maybe this week by the ECB as well. So central banks have done the right thing since the global financial crisis. Would that be your opinion?
Well, they've done different things. So I wouldn't want to say yes or no to that question. Both the U.S. and the U.K. Embarked on a QE2 program of massive, regular monthly purchases of government debt, and it appears that the ECB is at the point of doing the same. We'll find out on Thursday, tomorrow, very soon. So there has been plenty of monetary stimulus. I think there's no question that this monetary stimulus has helped to feed an asset price inflation. It's helped to drive up the stock market and drive up the let's put it this way, hasten the recovery of housing prices, and that appears to have been a good thing. In the back of my mind, and this is why I'm hesitating, I wonder whether when businesses saw this novel new program of open market purchases as far as the eye could see, I wonder whether that encouraged them to wait to see whether it might be better to invest later rather than invest now. This is not a point that I've succeeded in formalizing yet, but I think there's something to it. Because we didn't get as much bang in terms of investment activity as we hope to get from the rising stock market.
You think that might follow now? Corporate investment activity?
Yeah. Maybe if we stop doing QE2 and businesses see that this is about as good as it gets, then they'll open the coffers and start investing at a handsome rate. That could happen.
Okay. I have one final question about India. You spoke of India and how this could be a decade of improvement for India, especially since it looks like one of the few bright spots in the world at this point in time.
Yeah.
You've written extensively about innovation and its importance to an economy.
Yes.
How can India use what you've written to build a stronger economy? I spoke of the youthful demographic that we have.
Right.
And that's my question.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a new government.
I was going to interject before that it's not only young people who can be innovative.
I didn't mean it. But I say we have a combination of factors. A new government, young people, hopefully an economic recovery in India, and the fact that the rest of the world is not looking so good. So maybe we can sort of claim our spot in the sun.
Well, about India, I'm reminded, as I am so often, and as I wrote about extensively in my book, Mass Flourishing, I'm reminded of the American case. What I think produced such sensational innovation in America between, let's say, 1830 and 1940, and to some lesser extent afterwards, was that everybody was involved in innovating. Everybody was thinking about, is there some way we can make this device more cheaply, or is there some way we can improve on it, or is there some way of doing this that's radically different that would be better? I think there was a spirit of inquiry, of experimentation, a spirit of trying to imagine new possibilities, a spirit of exercising creativity. I think to some extent that could happen in India too.
So you see this next decade as being a decade that India could sort of own?
Could be, yes.
Could be. Professor Phelps, thank you very much. I know I've frozen you standing here in the snow. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
TV.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.